Hello, everybody. Welcome to Bill Naaman's Bogus Hangout. I'm going to have our guests introduce themselves. Zara, please tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Zara Altier. I write for the web and I am very bogus.
Terry, will you introduce yourself?
Terry,
Yeah.
who are you?
Will you introduce yourself?
Oh, Terry Van Horn, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Home of the real free.
And I'm Bill Slosky of SEO by the Sea, and I'm the Director of SEO Research for Go Fish Digital, and I'm in California. So we were talking about the news today, and part of the news involves Google telling people to use authorship markup, schema markup. They want to know who the authors of articles are.
Yep, and what their URL is. I saw the other day they're also had verified Mark Traphagen using his verified Twitter account and said that he was marked him as an author. Do you remember reading that, Bill?
I remember seeing that knowledge panel. He used the word author as one of his job descriptions. So I've used terms other than author for mine. So they don't have me as an author because I'm not officially calling myself an author.
I see.
It's like when I first started doing SEO as an SEO. I didn't call myself an SEO. I didn't have a job title, as a matter of fact. So nobody else called me an SEO either.
Mm-hmm.
So remember a few years back when Google had author and then they took away author. So now they're thinking that tying content to an individual author makes sense. And also, I'm not seeing it right off the top of my head, but there was something about when there are multiple authors that each author needs to have that schema involved. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can name multiple authors now. And also the big changes, like I've had in the schema that I wrote for the theme, author is one of the properties that I added. However, in the recommendations, when I wrote that, putting the URL of the author was not in the recommendations. It is now being added that you do an @ID and give the URLs for the author, which gives them a way to verify one author from another now.
So I wrote about something in 2007 called Agent Rank.
Sorry, I'm late.
Hi, Tom.
And Agent Rank was like author rank, except you could be an editor, you could be a commenter. You would digitally sign what you added to a page, and that would be a verification that you were working on the page. You could log into the page using your Google account, for instance. That's the way most people identify themselves, and that's the way Google can avoid having to look at schema to see who the author is. They can tell if the person logs in using a Google affiliated account, like a Google at Work account or something that they sign into Gmail. Google recognizes those people.
Yeah.
And if they log into Google and they're logged into Google most of the time through the day and they're blogging using that login, Google knows who wrote that article.
Right.
Now, sometimes you have multiple people using the same login.
I thought it was interesting, Bill, adding the ID, because now they basically set up the opposite to what they had when they had, you had your Google Plus profile and you linked to the sites that you were authoring on. Now, instead, in the schema, the site names the authors of that post, right? So it's kind of the same method in reverse by having the author on the site.
We see multiple ways of verification when you're verifying a site for like Google Analytics or Google Search Console. You've got a choice of 3 or 4 different ways of analyzing, including stuff you publish to the site, stuff you FTP in, stuff you publish to Google Analytics or Google Search Console. You could upload an HTML page using FTP.
Mm-hmm.
You do that different ways. You can identify yourself and get some credit for who you are as an author by logging into Google itself.
Yeah. For any kind of author kind of verification, that's what it requires is, things on 2 ends. So I think they want to do this, and I think they'll figure out multiple ways to verify authors.
But think about all the ways they have of verifying if you make more than one Gmail account. They can figure out who you are pretty quickly.
And they can associate your Gmail account or your Google account with the browser, with different fingerprint on a browser, with all the extensions you have added to it, or your geolocation IP address.
One of my friends in InfoSec told me that one of the ways they all track computers is by the sound card as well. So most sound cards are surprisingly different in some way. So those are actually used in tracking. I wouldn't be surprised if they can be picked up by anyone. I wouldn't be surprised if Google's using it.
Well, you could argue that the only sane reason for having Google fonts be not cacheable is so they can track every time they're downloaded.
They were tracking fonts. In fact, they were using them for.
Well, they are because you can't cache them. That's why I won't use them in a theme. They're not cacheable. Yeah,
the local fonts are much better.
Therefore, they can be used to track you.
Yep.
It's just like a ping every time you download those things on a site.
You know what else?
Are you familiar with audible watermarks?
Well, I have one. It's my voice.
So when somebody records a television show or a commercial or an advertisement, they attach a high frequency file to that content. And if somebody's got a device like a phone that's got a microphone that's always on and it listens all the time, my phone can identify songs that are playing around me, songs that are playing on the radio, on TV, in stores. When I go shopping, it'll show a little caption saying what's playing. So it knows what kind of music is happening. It does the same thing with those audible watermarks. It knows what content I've listened to, what TV shows, what commercials. Yeah.
When you watch a commercial for a car next time, Google just the manufacturer and the model will most likely come up automatically. That's what I've seen happen.
Yeah, and there are ways to track. Google's patented audible watermarks, so has Apple, and DMark has too. There are a few other companies. There are a lot of people doing it.
I just found out my phone can track dog barks when water's running, all things that you'd think would be helpful, but it's always listening. Even if you try to turn the microphone off.
And chances are your phone's probably as good as Shazam.
Oh, yeah.
Identifying songs.
Yep. I think even the regular Google app is probably much better than Shazam. identifying songs and images.
They've shown people in the past on Google commercials humming into their phones to search for songs. So
really?
You can hum to try to find a song.
Wow. That's helpful. Yeah, most of us aren't very...
I haven't found a song yet that if you put part of the lyrics into Google, it doesn't pull the song. I haven't found one yet that it couldn't.
You tried humming or whistling?
No, I don't have a microphone hooked up to a computer. Other than when I'm on here and I turn it on. Other times it's unplugged.
So
probably the safest
you
way.
can hum a tune and it will find the song.
It will find a song, even if you're off tune.
That could be.
It doesn't critique you either. It doesn't come out with the Simon Cowell type voice and say, "You need more practice."
Very kind.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think author vectors and just the identification of who's... I mean, look at Google My Business. They've been paying attention to who's actually connected to the site, as well as Search Console. And based on, if someone's been doing a lot of spammy stuff in the past, I think they take that into consideration.
And Google My Business has been heavily involved in the local guide business. So when I'm running around taking photos with my camera, if I'm at a business they don't have many pictures of, they'll send me a notice asking me to upload that picture.
Yeah.
Because
really?
they're assuming that it's got something to do with the business, even if it has nothing to do with the business. Like I was in Solana Beach taking a picture of the sunrise or sunset. And I was next to some bar that they wanted photographs of. So they sent me a little notice asking me to send them pictures of the bar.
That's pretty cool.
So I sent them the sunrise.
Taken from the bar.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
I've gotten points for being a local guide or whatever by just continuing to upload photos or, write about.
Right. Sometimes they don't get the business right. They get the one next door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was at a Consignment Classics, which is next door to 24-Hour Fitness. And they wanted pictures of the 24-Hour Fitness. Now, they asked me for 24-Hour Fitness pictures. I couldn't give them any.
Yeah.
But then you have to go in and find the consignment place that you were in and then add stuff there. And then Google gets unconfused.
Well, I found I was given a hint regarding some businesses. If you go to the business and you walk in the front door and take a picture of the people at the cashier, stuff like that, and upload that to Google rather than the front of the place, Google will sometimes use those photographs as the guide in Google navigation. They'll get lots and lots and lots of views.
They'll block out the face though, right? They'll kind of
I hope
pixelate it.
Not necessarily.
No?
Oh, really? No. Wow, because in the original, I haven't been paying a lot of attention to this, but I know it used to be before for Google My Business when you had the indoor images for the business. If there were
so you're confusing Google My Business with Google Maps.
Oh, I see.
I just said Google Maps.
Okay.
Okay. You take pictures with Google. You take picture and you share it with Google Maps to Google, and they want that for pictures they show people either if they're deciding to go to the place or they want to see what's going on there. So sometimes they'll save lots of those pictures to see what's happening at a certain location. Sometimes when somebody's navigating to a place, they'll choose one picture to show as to stand for the place. And sometimes it'll be the front of the place, sometimes it'll be right inside.
I don't know. I wouldn't want to have my pictures of people up because I didn't get permission. I don't have a signed release.
Right. It's not going to be on your Google My Business if you're uploading to Google Maps.
To Google, but Google Maps doesn't care if you're taking pictures of other people.
Google Maps black stuff, some photographs out. It's their job to black stuff out. It's not your job as the photographer. If they don't want to get faces, they're the ones protecting people's personally identifiable information.
Okay.
As an agent, as a local guide, you're not responsible for that. You're not signing the disclaimer and getting people you're taking pictures of to disclaim that they won't be notable on a global scale.
I'm pretty sure that if you want yourself off of Google My Business or Google Maps, you can probably ask, and they'll be very happy to.
Right, but we don't have anybody asking.
Right.
Yeah, nobody's asking.
Yeah. So I had a Street Views car come down my street when I lived on a street that had a front patio, and my neighbors were downstairs having a little bit of a party on the patio, drinking beers and whatever. And Google caught them doing that.
I like that word, partio.
Partio.
We're having
Yeah.
a partio.
They weren't too happy finding out they were on Google.
Bet not. See, that's the thing, and I know from my photography days the big no is children.
Oh yeah.
Well, Google does tend to black out pictures of faces, of license plates, of other things. So they're not going to upload those to Google My Business if those have those types of things.
Okay.
Yeah, Google's excellent about most of that stuff, about keeping your private information private. And not always, but you know what I mean, like in Google Maps, it doesn't show car license plates and things like that.
Yeah, I like the pictures they take when they're doing Google Maps for trails and for museums.
Yeah.
And stores.
Yeah.
So
especially
if you go to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, they'll walk you through it.
That's
walk
amazing.
You through different aspects of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate when businesses actually take the time to show the interior of it too. It's a nice thing, especially if you're going to go and buy something at the store. Get an idea of what it's like.
And they'll take you to places like the Mariana Trench in the middle of the Pacific.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know what it can do now is like, it's so amazing. I remember when Google Earth first came out thinking how wow that was. And then now we're at all sorts of different, go into space and go look at everything.
There are people.
Google Earth is much more specific now than it was when it first came out. It's like everywhere.
There are people playing archaeologists with Google Maps, trying to find lost civilizations in fields in South America and Mexico.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, to be able to see all that data from like all that satellite data is amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if other countries are using it against us. They're using our Google Maps.
You can't necessarily see some things. Some areas are blacked out.
Yep.
I lived in Warrenton, Virginia, and we had a number of secret hidden military installations in the mountains. And you could drive past them. You could see the guards at the gate. You go to look them up on a computer, and you couldn't see anything.
Yeah, it's like I'll come back to it. But West Virginia, the military compound that the reporter found, I forgot the name of it. It'll hit me. Greenbrier.
I had people on Craigslist advertising role-playing sessions at one of the military bases, and they wanted people to play terrorists. And they were going to they were looking for real people to play real terrorists, or at least ones at the military base who they could infiltrate.
Wow, that's dangerous. Play that game.
I talked to my landlord, who said all the landlords are aware of them because they all rent houses in the area.
Wow.
So you have people from places like FBI renting homes
Quantico.
to play at the war games at the secret military bases.
Wow. Well, so it's not just regular people; it's people with credentials that are FBI agents and things like that that should be doing these types of things instead of just people trying to have fun.
I'm not sure. I was tempted to play
a terrorist.
A terrorist.
That would be fun. If it's all pretend, then it'd be great. If it's not, then count me out. But
no, I thought about it. I said, okay, those are real guns, so they're not playing with those. So maybe it's not a good idea to get involved.
did you live near Quantico? Is that where you were?
I was about half an hour from Quantico, but
wow.
I was about half an hour from Skyline Drive too. So there's some big hills in the area.
Yeah, that is a very rugged terrain.
It's rugged. It's pretty though.
So alt text, even with Google's ability to connect to, or it's the AI ability to recognize images is just not at the same place as it used to, or it should be, to able to, or it can replace where it can place alt text, which should be pretty clear if we try to use Google Vision or any other AI system to try to label photos.
So Google, let me start that at the beginning because you sort of got halfway into the middle of it. Google uses alt text as a way to understand what's in a picture.
Yep.
They're looking at what people write in alt text for images. and they're watching when people spam those images, if they spam them. At a site that was kept out of top stories because they were naming entities and images twice.
Oh, right. They just
They're stuffing the pictures.
Hmm.
It's like they'd show Matt Dillon and they'd write Matt Dillon.
Yeah.
As
That
if
would-
saying his name twice was some type of chicken
Magic.
liver voodoo evocation.
It's twice as many times, so it's got to be twice as good.
Right. So they said this is a problem. I took a look at the site. I said, I see people's names in alt text twice. Have you tried to get rid of those? No. Should we? Said, do you want top stories or not? It said, yeah, we want top stories. I say, try getting rid of the names twice. Only put the names once.
Well,
Yeah.
the other
They-
thing that I saw as a practice, which I don't see so much now, so you can tell me if it's still happening, but people use that alt text space not to actually describe what's in the photo, but to put some kind of message in. So, and
it's really easy to stuff lots of things on lots of pages. I was working for a university site. It's a well-known, well-respected university, and the SEO who's working on the site before me managed to tell the people, did you know that you can use a title attribute for almost any type of HTML? They said, no kidding. Next day I come in, their site was stuffed with title attributes.
Oh gosh.
God,
I sent them a message saying, I don't believe that's what somebody was telling you to do. Fortunately, they had a backup of their site. They reverted to the backup and got rid of all the additional titles.
oh, that was lucky.
Yeah. I think they knew they were doing something bad and
Yeah.
planned for somebody telling them, don't do that.
We don't know what we're doing, but we're going to try this.
So all they heard was titles are good, and then they just started filling out everything.
Yeah.
They are important, but only in the right spot.
And you don't want to be the university site that gets penalized by Google.
No.
No.
Oh yeah, you get your students coming after you. That would be brutal.
Mm-hmm.
So the speed update they're saying is more of a tiebreaker now.
More than a tiebreaker.
Yep. It's going to help with. Well, I've already seen it help with conversion rates.
So by tiebreaker, it's if you've got two sites that for most things are the equivalent of each other, but
Right.
one could potentially rank higher than the other one because it's faster, because it's closer to the searcher, because they'll get results that they're happy with quicker. So they should rank higher.
Yeah. And it does wonders for conversion as well. I was actually
Google starts out saying all these things are just tiebreakers and they end up being ranking factors. They said HTTPS would only be a tiebreaker and ended up 6 months later it was tanking sites. So
And you talk to search engineers who used to do lots of ranking on other search engines, and they'll say there are no ranking signals. All the search engines now use machine learning.
okay. If you say so.
To some degree, they do.
They definitely use it, but I think that the machine learning takes into consideration the site speed as well, or the algorithm
Well,
itself.
I was skeptical of speed.
There's some sites that have images, like photography sites, that
Mhm.
people are willing to wait a long time for an
Yeah.
image to download. And there, it's not a terrible thing when it takes a long time to get a picture, as opposed to some news site when you want that picture of that celebrity in seconds or microseconds.
There's even a
Yeah,
way
but
now.
they aren't
So-
coming down because of the
so-
100 ads on the page.
So the user experience is defined by the user, not the search engine.
That's true. I think that would be
It's like if you're going to go to a heart doctor, if you're going to wait for the best guy, you'll probably wait for that site to load. You're just taking into consideration because you don't want to die or to have a heart attack or whatever it might be. Like
Mhm.
those guys are probably immune to most of these things. They're not going to bounce off and go back to find someone else, or they'll check them all out, but they won't care how fast it loads.
Okay, so that site's a little bit slower, but everybody leaves the site happy,
Yeah,
as opposed to the really fast site that everybody's leaving aggravated.
one thing they can do now with images is actually download a very basically a poorer quality version or a lighter version, and then fill it in later. Or for photography sites, you can just have them click the download or the carousel, and then it goes slower, so it doesn't affect the page speed as much. But I do agree, like photography sites, those guys have very
Low res and high res pictures, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah. That's so they come up faster and then fill in.
yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's an old trick.
Yep.
That's how we used to almost do any large image. That's how you were supposed to do it, was by using a high res and a low res image.
Yeah, no, I think compression's gotten so good now, and image sizing and all that stuff.
Which doesn't make a lot of sense given that the web is only 72 DPI anyways.
Very true. Yeah, a lot of people put 300 DPI, and that's print.
Yeah, I always wonder about that. You know, they're putting quality for very high glossy magazines on the web. That's like,
I get
where
somebody
you're
yelling
gonna
at
choose
somebody.
to
somebody-
the pig farm.
Right. I get somebody planning a presentation, a seminar, a webinar, yelling at me because I send them low resolution images. I send them a response saying, "Look, I work on the web. I work for the web. I'm not some fashion photographer model. If you want print quality images, go find a model."
Ask for them. That's what I tell them. You have to ask for print quality images. And then I'll have to go remake the ones that I have at 72 DPI, which means you aren't going to get high res quality anyways.
Yeah. If you buy pictures from a photographer,
Why
they'll
would
just
you?
take your-
Why? I'm just curious. Why would you need all that high resolution for a presentation?
If you're going to have pictures that get printed using
Oh no, I
a
understand
printer,
the printing part. I'm asking about why would you need them for a
because
presentation?
the people planning these presentations happen to sometimes provide documents for the people attending the conference, little booklets, things like
Oh,
that.
I see, with
And-
full
and-
color
And
resolution
they
images.
don't tell the speakers that they're doing that, but they ask the speakers for them anyway because they expect that everybody has high resolution photographs.
Yeah.
And people working on the web are the last people to ask for high resolution photographs.
We want the smaller ones.
Well, I generally keep the original PN, PN, not PDF, the file that Photoshop, PSP, right? That's it.
And I'm used to running across 100 pixel by 100 pixel profile image that's 16 megabytes.
Yeah.
Mm.
And that's the last thing I want to see.
Yeah. No, and I think people get confused when they hear about Retina displays on iPhones and certain computers, and yeah, they have apparently a higher pixel density. But I've tried to view a 300 DPI and a 72 DPI. I could not tell the difference at all. Like it'd be hard. You'd be very hard pressed, and I don't think anyone's going to build that just for one machine. Or a handful of machines.
Safer than it does on a computer.
Right. It shows up the same to me. It shows up like I have a what's it, like Apple high resolution display, and it says it has 200 and something pixels per square inch, but I can't tell the difference between 72 and.
I used to get images from a company that they give me the image for a billboard, and it was literally the size of the billboard.
Oh, good.
I said, really, what do you expect me to do with this? Buy a new machine to download it?
I've had people come to me and they're like, this page used to perform really well. I'm like, what changed? I uploaded an image. It's like 16 megs. I'm like, okay, that might be a problem. Run it from a new browser uncached and see how it performs.
Yeah, if you want to screw with any kind of graphic design company, just tell them you want the original image. You know, the PSP, they go nuts, literally nuts. Because when a client calls them, they tell them they're making the image again, charge it for it, and then just resize the original, right?
Yeah.
When I realized that's what they were doing, I said, yeah, from now on, I want the original included with everything you give me.
I think anyone that's getting business cards made or something like that, they should bring in 300 DPI, but web 772. Or it just also, I think it confuses the size of the photos as well, because they're actually, so I mean, the width and the height will be different, but
yeah,
it messes
I remember
up
when you could only use certain colors.
Yeah.
Right? Remember the web safe color palette, Bill?
Yeah.
Yeah, like 6 choices.
Didn't even have true color in the original browsers. It was not until maybe 10 years into it that we got true color and 24-bit pictures.
Oh yeah, I remember the 12-bit and the terrible color.
Used to see some horrific pictures that weren't the right color, where they'd use a non-safe color. Oh my God, nothing uglier.
I saw a person download a tiger when I was very, very young, and the thing was not the color of any natural tiger. It was very, very strange looking thing. But I was blown away by what I was actually seeing. Took 40 seconds to download, but it was almost purple. But yeah. I think one of the interesting things is with interlinking has built up a lot of helped a lot of clients with ranking. To obvious, it's kind of goes without saying that will help, but doing it more and more, I think there's very little downside unless you do it incorrectly. I think that there's some tools that automate it now, and I think Ahrefs actually is one of them that allows you to go through and select based by their version of PageRank, which isn't real PageRank, obviously, but backlinks, I'm assuming, going to the source page. And that's been pretty interesting to play with.
This is something that really doesn't require some deep, in-depth scientific knowledge approach, some correlation study. The more links you have to your page, most likely the higher your page is going to rank.
Yep.
That's common sense.
You'd be surprised.
It's not very common, though, Bill. It's common sense. It's not very common.
So you read some conclusion list from some guy who's done a study of 11.8 billion blog pages, and he says the more domains linked to your site, the higher your page ranks. It's been proven as a real correlation.
Oh yeah, yeah.
There is no such thing as real correlations. There are correlations, and sometimes there are reasons or causation behind the correlations.
The links being the causation.
There's like the study that somebody did where he found that young fathers going to convenience stores would buy beer whenever they bought diapers.
Not surprising, actually.
They
Reminded them they needed a drink.
They were rewarding themselves for buying the diapers by buying the beer.
They're buying the beer.
Right. So there was a correlation there.
That's interesting.
So convenience stores started putting the diapers near the beer.
Oh, so diapers were the cause for his drinking problem. He had to keep going to the store for diapers.
Oh my God.
Angie says ice cream sales increase with murders.
I never understood that at all. To me, it's like, it rained. I washed my car yesterday, so that means when I wash my car, it's going to rain. That's the kind of logic they're using.
That's pessimistic.
So murders and ice cream sales, murders tend to happen more on hot days.
And there was that guy who played
and people eat ice cream on hot days.
On hot days.
Remember that guy who used to kill people in an ice cream truck? You might have been the cause of this. No, I'm just but yeah, that does make sense. Warm weather aggravates people, or hot weather, I should say.
Yeah, we used to
have murders here when we reach 106 degrees Fahrenheit.
We used
ice cream out.
We used to check a moon guide to see when days where judges were late to court on days where there were full moons.
Was that very often?
We checked it. We didn't want to leave anything out. That seemed like a good thing to check.
They're howling at the moon instead of
You can't be sure.
Doesn't the full moon affect traffic? Aren't there more traffic accidents at the full moon?
I've heard of all sorts of stuff happening during a full moon, but yeah, this is actually true. The correlation between murders and ice cream is a fact. Wow.
Or a coincidence.
It's more a coincidence. It's more both of them happen because of the same effect.
Right.
They don't cause each other.
The stuff that people say is correlation, I think, no, it could be just as much coincidence as correlation.
Right. The hot weather is the cause, and they
hot weather is the cause, yeah.
and agitation that leads to murder. So
Hot weather, people want to cool off. One of the ways to do that is to drink something cool.
having a home in Florida, I can tell you there's a lot more crime down there than there is in New England, in New Hampshire at least.
Specific types of crime?
A lot more murders. Like when I first got down there, I remember turning on the television and I was driving on a street and there were 2 cops killed on that street like 5 minutes after probably I was driving on. And that's the worst thing I've ever heard of on the seacoast of New Hampshire. Was a guy who he did something pretty bad, but he shot 5 police officers that were trying to arrest him for selling steroids, and but that's the one thing out of like 20 years that's happened. That's it. Like there's no murders aside from that. Like Newcastle's had a dead body wash up on shore, and that was in the 70s. Before that, the 1800s was the last murder. Some guy got accused. He was called a wizard by a woman who he called a witch, and apparently that was an insult back in the day. And then it supposedly rained rocks, and then they moved to Salem, and allegedly, according to at least Wikipedia, that's what sparked the Salem witch trials. It didn't help things, at least. And I think raining rocks are just kids chucking rocks. Yeah. Only 800 people on the island, so. But yeah, violent crime in Florida, I would say. A lot more burglaries, a lot more assaults, a lot more murder.
I found an online service that sends me updates of crime and which offenses take place where. Shows a little map and pins them out in a radius around my house.
Oh yeah, those like I've seen that before. It's pretty eye-opening, isn't it?
Yeah, there are a lot of vehicle offenses in my neighborhood.
Stolen vehicles or
break-ins, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to do a pretty good job of recording people's license plate numbers as they're driving down the road, and that keeps the stolen vehicle amounts down.
Oh, those automatic license plate readers that cops have?
Yeah. They're on traffic lights, yeah.
And they're on the front of police cars too, right? If they pass you.
As far as I know, they just have them on the traffic lights. They don't have them on the police cars. They're using them to track stolen vehicles.
Yeah. And probably in court if you said you were somewhere and they can prove that you were.
All I'm aware of is the cameras on the signals, though, not on any cars. I know that exists. I don't know if that exists here.
Oh yeah. I think it exists up here, but I see the cameras in Florida and in New England on the top of the light posts. They don't really mask them, but they do a good job of catching you if you do something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Right, and those same cameras watch the license plates. Is that correct?
They just log them, I think.
Yeah, this way they know which vehicles are traveling where, when. So if your car gets stolen, they can tell how it gets driven around once it's stolen.
Probably much better chance of retrieving the car, actually, if you can spot it going to almost its end destination.
Mm-hmm. So, Terry.
Yep.
User queries help Google determine what is shown in knowledge panels?
Yeah. They were Yeah, like all stuff that's on a SERP, I think they do a lot of click analysis to decide what goes into it. And with some authors, they find that people do queries with books associated to the author's name, so they include books in the knowledge panel.
So the
There are a
patents
lot of searches that include movies. They include movies in the search panel.
the patents that focus upon searching
Knowledge
searching quality searching queries for entities refer to that as triggering. You use a trigger word, and that causes an effect in search results. So if you search for like Carlsbad weather, it'll see weather and it'll say, let's show them a forecast for Carlsbad.
Right.
So it's triggering the search result. So entities in queries sometimes refer to a lot of entities. So I had one business that had 2 locations. And if you put the business name and then the name of one town, you saw that business. If you put the business name in the other town, you saw the other business that was located in that town. So switching.
That's usually the best way to do it, Bill.
And they had actual addresses in those towns, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Right.
Just-
I was explaining that's how it worked because we don't have a visual here, but that's how that works. So
You have to watch your linking, though. Dave and I worked on a project where the company had franchises worldwide. And the problem they were having is from the Canadian website, they link too often to stuff on the U.S. website, and that caused the U.S. site to outrank the Canadian site.
In Canada?
In the Canadian index, yes.
For the knowledge panel?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking about actual results for the companies.
So it wasn't knowledge panel. It was
No, it wasn't knowledge
results.
panels. Just the results in general.
Yeah.
So you have to watch your interlinking as well when you're doing that kind of work.
And sometimes what shows up in the knowledge panel isn't what you want. I had a client that was a car dealership, and their knowledge panel, the reason why they came to us as a client was because they weren't happy with the knowledge panel. The knowledge panel was showing their parts department as opposed to the car dealership.
Yeah.
So
which is why you want to take control of a knowledge panel when you can.
Right. So they were
Right,
selling lots of after parts. They wanted to show the dealership so they would sell more cars.
Right. The main business.
Right. We used the feedback button. We were listed as a agent of theirs, so we had control over it. We contacted Google and asked them to change it. It took them 2 weeks. They changed it.
Yeah. If you have the site in your webmaster console in GSC, if you have control of that website there, you can also verify a knowledge panel, or you have control of the GMB listing.
And you could potentially ask them to change.
Right.
You may not be able to change it yourself, but
right. But you could make a suggestion, and I think once they put you in charge, they let you determine a lot more things that go into it.
yeah, in this case, it was like the car dealership was Suite A and the parts department was Suite B.
So same address and just the
Same street address, different suites.
yeah.
And they just said, yeah, we can change it to the dealership.
Yeah, I think they. I mean, I know the knowledge graph also takes off the structured data of your website and your organization and all that. Any structured data that you have about your business, I'm assuming is populated there.
It doesn't define how to do those things exactly, and sometimes a phone call just works real well.
If you can make a phone call.
If you can make a phone call.
Yeah. That's a short list, believe me.
I'm still thinking about the same address, 2 suites. What happens when George's Barbershop and the game store have the same address and one's in suite A and one's in suite B?
I think it depends on if they're
differentiate that when, so say George's Barbershop enters suite A for their Google My Business.
Google doesn't do that. Doesn't differentiate by the suite. They see a building as all the tenants in the building, not by the suite number. That's why you see in local, people were complaining because there's 10 lawyers in a building. Only one lawyer could be displayed.
They're all doing virtual.
If you travel to London and look for Google headquarters in London and look on the building for the word Google, you won't find it. You've got to actually walk in the front door and look at the sign behind the receptionist, which says that Google is one of the companies in the building, along with 20 other companies. And ask the receptionist to see the Google people, and you'll get sent to the right place.
So you have to know the actual physical address to go there.
They don't put the names of the stores on the outsides of buildings.
No.
But if the post office recognizes it as suite A or suite 24 or whatever, then the Google will recognize it the same way. Correct?
I was giving a speech at Google headquarters in London, and I couldn't find it. I was walking around. I finally found Food People. And I thought to myself, okay, Food People will know because people from Google probably order food. So they'll know where Google's at. So I asked them. They pointed me to the building. I went in, and there it was.
Yeah,
I know
makes sense.
a situation where there's hundreds of businesses in one suite.
Like are you talking about virtual offices
No,
or rent? Like
a business center.
Just the building.
There's a difference between a business center and a virtual office.
Oh, I know what you mean. Yeah, where it's sort of like an open.
Right. One has physical locations and one doesn't. And that's the difference between the two.
But you have some buildings which house businesses which aren't small businesses. So the businesses renting the buildings will take up one floor at a time or multiple floors.
Multiple floors, yeah.
Yeah, I think that people are less likely to type in the full address as well when they're searching. It seems to be basically whoever's got structured data and the most optimized site gets the win when they search that location. Or also, of course, Google My Business and has done the work on Google Maps.
If you're going to put an address on a website, you're going to put it on the web pages and the schema, both.
Yep.
Because you're supposed to.
Yeah. Everything in schema, most things in schema are supposed to appear in the website in HTML. Or in text, or yeah.
I want it in both. I think you should be able to find the address and phone number of a business on every page on a website.
Yeah, I agree. It should be in the upper, your address should be in the footer and your phone number should be in the upper right-hand corner. But mobile, it's hard
to me, if I don't see it, if I don't see address and telephone number on a website, you know what I think? What are they hiding?
Well, it depends on what type of website too. Right?
It doesn't matter what kind it is, right? What are you hiding? Why don't you want to tell me where I can go and find you? Because I might have to.
There's nothing that says you need to put the address in the footer. It doesn't have to be in the footer.
No,
As long as it's on the
anywhere.
page.
But I put it in the footer for.
So I had an SEO contact me through LinkedIn, and he was trying to work with a client of mine who was his insurance company. And he asked me, if you've taken over the insurance company, you need to get back to UX basics because you don't have the account number and my name on the top of the page.
You
And
guys
I
insane.
sent him a response back saying, "Who the hell are you?"
Yeah, no, that guy was doing. Was dangerous.
I followed up by saying, I've checked every website I have a business account with. Nobody puts an account number on their pages. Nobody puts my name on their pages at the head of the page. Some cases, some clients have distinct pages for my account. When I look up the account number, account page,
your profile page.
my account number is there, but it's not on every page.
No, and you wouldn't want it to be.
And if you're blaming SEOs for the lack of account numbers being on every page, it's a feature. It's not a detriment. You don't put your account number on every page of every website because somebody shoulder surfing is going to steal your account number and create
Look over your
identity
shoulder and
theft.
see the account.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean,
So you can thank me, but I don't want to hear from you anymore again.
Don't waste your time.
Yeah.
Your emails won't get read.
yeah, it's interesting. Like most systems now make you click on the account number to actually view it, just to prevent people from can't speak. Looking over their shoulder and seeing their account number.
A lot of times, people, if they put your account number on a website, they'll show like only the last 4 digits.
Right.
Yeah. I've seen that quite a bit.
Yeah, the last
Especially on
4, the
credit
last
card.
3 even.
Almost like a credit card number.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was working with a utility company of mine, and they wanted me to fill out a form and put all 12 numbers of my account number. So I contacted them through chat. I said, I've only got 10 numbers. They said, you're not a paper customer. You're an internet-only customer. We only sent you the 10 numbers. Put a 00 at the start of it, and that's the paper number. I said, I stopped being a mind reader a long time ago.
You really?
Yeah.
Not
Not
my
too good
crystal
at it.
wall.
I had just the opposite thing with my individual account number for my bank account,
Yeah.
which has a string of zeros at the beginning. And they said, oh, well, you don't need to enter all those zeros. Just start with the first number, you know.
I think there's just a difference between private people giving out personal information and a business that's trying to sell you things.
And
giving
I
out their
figured
address and phone number.
I figured that one of the problems that the utility company has when they sent me a letter thanking me for my service and telling me they went ahead and changed my method of payment, and it was effective 1/1/1900. I called them. They were my electrical provider. I called them and said, I don't think we had electricity in 1900.
This place wasn't here in 1900.
So it's a default system date. When they don't have the right information, it prints out 1/1/1900 in Fortran and COBOL.
Hmm.
So they were using old programming language.
A lot of places do. Banks are notorious for Fortran.
Oh,
It was a utility company, power company.
Hmm.
why they're all getting hacked right now, is they're not too up on anything tech. It's really bad for everyone. Infrastructure is, way behind. I think internal link building with anchor text. I think that's another. Terry was saying how much it matters for Canada versus the United States, but have you seen that happen with? You've seen it mostly when they interlink too much together. That even with a .ca and a .com, that the geo TLD doesn't make enough difference.
Not in North America. I haven't seen a lot. It's still hard for, like, there was a time when it was just as easy for me to rank a Canadian site in the US index as it was in Canada. That changed. That has changed years ago.
Yeah.
So when you have an actual, the same TLD as the index, I believe it does make it a little bit easier.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that.
But that depends too. Like in Europe, I'll bet TLD means almost nothing. It's more about language in that case.
I think like people in Germany generally will feel comfortable clicking on a .com or a .de.
But the thing is, right? Does Google want to put English sites in a German index?
Mm.
No, yeah. Not really.
Right? If you're searching in Germany, I would assume that you're looking for German sites. Even in Canada, if I'm searching on the Canadian index, I'm going to get mostly Canadian companies.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, why would you put a .ca on a company for North America or somewhere else?
Vanity.
Yeah.
If you've got a Liberian website,
Well,
it
ends
ends with
.ly.
.ly.
Yeah.
You're doing it because you like the name, not because of what country you come from.
Yeah. But they've discounted a lot of location-based or country-based TLDs, CCLDs, TLDs. Sorry, they seem to be dropping like flies. Honestly, I mean, so Colombia was supposed to be .co, but I agree. Like, I think that the rules are though that you have to show a Canadian address if you're moving forward with if you're trying to buy a Canadian TLD.
Well, if I can buy both, I generally do.
Yeah.
And if there's .com and .ca available, I'll probably just buy the .com.
Mm-hmm. And it's been a few years since I got a letter in the mail telling me that the Chinese version of my domain name is available. And I can send them a couple $100 and guarantee nobody takes over that. I haven't felt the real need to do that ever.
No.
But, sometimes it causes sleepless nights.
That can be a little tricky, though. Like, for instance, I went to register a domain name. The US one was taken, so I just took the Canadian one, which will probably rank just as well in the US if I get US links.
Mm-hmm. So .ca is in California?
No, it's Canada. If it's capitalized, though, it might be.
CA.
I wonder. I mean, Google has seemed to have devalued a lot of the signals from servers, like IP addresses for international domains. The domain matters. The IP address no longer matters, which makes sense because you have reverse proxies with IPs from all over the place now powering most websites.
Well,
Or-
in the past, if you wanted to rank in the Canadian domain, it was much easier if you had a Canadian host and you weren't hosted in the US.
Yeah,
That makes a difference too.
if the IP
But
match.
that seems to have changed too. It's not as important as it was.
They said they no longer take IPs into consideration. I think it was like 2.5 years ago.
Everything they say, we don't or we will or whatever. They said not 2 months ago that core web values would only be a tiebreaker. And what have we discussed today? How it's now a ranking factor.
It's a huge
So
ranking
anything they say should be taken with not a grain of salt, a fucking salt lick.
shaker.
Those big tubes you see in the field, that's how you should treat them.
Yeah, no, I agree.
You know, how many products have they brought to market that, 2-3 years later, we don't want to do this anymore. So, like I said, I don't take anything they say serious.
Do any of you share your address information online?
When you say address information, like for
Street
Business?
address
business or for
for business. Yeah.
business, yes.
Mhm.
Well, that's
So-
the easiest way to find the business is if you know the address. It usually helps.
So most of the spam I get comes from a phone number in Delaware because my cell phone has a Delaware phone number.
Yep.
Oh yeah, mine has mostly Oregon phone numbers, spam phone numbers. So they key it.
So they'll call me at 6 a.m. thinking it's 9. I'm in a different time zone than that.
Oh, that would make me cranky.
So
Yeah,
they
you
get
can't take that stuff anymore. You used to be able to tell where someone was located by the
Right.
first 3 numbers in their telephone number.
Yeah,
You
so
can't do that anymore.
So my landline gets spam from my California address. So I pick up the phone and it's somebody who says, "Hi, John." Said, "I'm not John."
John,
Steve,
not here right
John's not
now.
here. Yeah.
Doesn't John somebody own this phone number? I said, "No, I don't know John. I've had this phone number for 3 years. I've never met John."
I always tell them I found it.
Neither
on the side
have
of the
you.
road.
Bye. Yeah.
Neither of you.
Neither have you. That's good.
Do you see the ones from that one company? I don't know if it was the same company, but they would always be like, "Your local listings are terrible. We're Google." They would say they're Google basically, and then ask you to sign up.
They don't usually answer questions. They don't like to.
No, they really don't like answering questions.
Just
They don't like interacting with people.
I put them on hold for a long time sometimes, and then just put the phone somewhere.
I usually, if they like say I'm Sheriff John Smith, I'll laugh and say, "So what?"
Oh, I got one of the best ones of a guy saying, "I am an IRS agent," with a very thick accent. And I said, I have everything to hide, so please come and get me, and I'll take the punishment. I need it. I'm kind of a sadist and masochist, so come on, let's do this. And he's like, "What? No, you're gay." And I'm like, "I live for this stuff. Come on." And
I had somebody pretending to be from the Social Security Administration. And the first thing they asked me is my Social Security number. I said,
we have to verify who you are.
I said, "I'm not giving you a Social Security number because then you'll know who I am." As for now, you have no idea.
Yeah. No, it's really bad when they start in with that stuff. They call you up and they ask like just questions that obviously shouldn't be answered. They should know the answers to and provide you with them if they're actually legitimate.
It's like the public hearing officer from the driver's safety office gives me a hearing saying I can lose my driver's license because I had a stroke. She tells me that she's got a copy of my California driver's license, driver record, and she asks me as one of the questions, how many accidents have you had in the past 2 years? And it took everything to not say, you've got my driver's license. You can see it has none. Are you asking me this just to be a pain in the ass or because you're stupid?
Well, that's sometimes how they verify that you're the person they should talk to.
I think it's because she was stupid.
Yeah.
Oh, well,
I had more conversations with her. It's because she was stupid.
Oh my gosh.
The DMV is known for hiring the brightest and the best, so they are an abomination. DMV is sorry to anyone that's actually good at their job that works there.
So my doctor faxed 2 medical evaluation testimonies to them. She tells me that they've never been received. I told her she lost them. She got offended.
The government's never made a mistake.
Really?
They're not telling people to send faxes confirmed. They're the court of record. They're responsible for maintaining order. They're responsible for keeping records of that stuff. If they're going to run a court, they've got to set some rules regarding proof of service. It's past the top of the hour by a long shot. We're at 121. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.